.NET Basic Interview. Questions. What is the .NET framework? The .NET is a framework, which is a collection of classes of reusable libraries given by Microsoft to be used in other .NET applications and to develop, build, and deploy many types of applications on the Windows platform, including the following: console applications, Windows Forms applications, Windows Presentation Foundation, WPF, applications, web applications, web services, Windows services, services-oriented applications using Windows Communications Foundation, WCF, workflow-enabled applications using Windows Workflow Foundation, WF. What is CLR? The Common Language Runtime, CLR, the virtual machine component of Microsoft's .NET framework, manages the execution of .NET programs. A process known as just-in-time compilation converts compiled code into machine instructions which the computer's CPU then executes. This is an execution engine for .NET Framework application. It provides a number of services including code management, application memory isolation, verification of type safety, conversion of IL to native code, access to metadata, managing memory for managed objects, enforcement of code access security, exception handling, including cross-language exceptions, interoperation between managed code, COM objects, and pre-existing DLLs, unmanaged code and data, automation of object layout, support for developer services, profiling, debugging, etc. What is CTS? The Common Type System, CTS, standardizes the data types of all programming languages using .NET under the umbrella of .NET to a common data type for easy and smooth communication among these .NET languages. To implement or see how CTS is converting the data type to a common data type, for example, when we declare an int type data type in C# and VB.NET, then they are converted to int3 too. In other words, now both will have a common data type that provides flexible communication between these two languages. What is managed code? The resource, which is within your application domain, is managed code. The resources that are within domain are faster. The code, which is developed in .NET Framework, is known as managed code. This code is directly executed by CLR with help of managed code execution. Any language that is written in .NET Framework is managed code. Managed code uses CLR, which in turn looks after your applications by managing memory, handling security, allowing cross-language debugging, and so on. What is CLS? One of the important goals of .NET Framework is to support multiple languages. This is achieved by CLS. For multiple languages to interoperate, it is necessary that they should go on in common in certain features such as types that are used. For example, every language has its own size and range for different data types. Thus CLS is the agreement among language designers and class library designers concerning these usage conventions. What is MSIL? When we compile our .NET code, then it is not directly converted to native/binary code, it is first converted into intermediate code known as MSIL code, which is then interpreted by the CLR. MSIL is independent of hardware and the operating system. Cross-language relationships are possible since MSIL is the same for all .NET languages. MSIL is further converted into native code. What is JIT? A web service or web forms file must be compiled to run within the CLR. Compilation can be implicit or explicit. Although you could explicitly call the appropriate compiler to compile your web service or web forms files, it is easier to allow the file to be compiled implicitly. Implicit compilation occurs when you request the .asms via HTTP. SOAP, HTTP GET, or HTTP POST. The parser, xsp.exe, determines whether a current version of the assembly resides in memory or in the disk. If it cannot use an existing version, the parser makes the appropriate call to the respective compiler, as you designated in the class property of the .asms page. When the web service, or web forms page, is implicitly compiled, it is actually compiled twice. On the first pass, it is compiled into IL. On the second pass, the web service, now an assembly in IL, is compiled into machine language. This process is called just-in-time JIT compilation because it does not occur until the assembly is on the target. What is portable executable, PE? Every .NET program first compiles with an appropriate compiler, like if we write a program in C# language, then it gets compiled by C# compiler, i.e. csc.exe. In .NET Framework, every program executes, communicate, in an operating system by using CLR, Common Language Runtime. Managed module is standard Windows Portable Executable, PE, file which contains the following parts. PE header. It is similar to common object file format. CLR header. Select from a rich assortment of animated slide layouts to consistently convey the right message and make the right impression. Metadata. This contains table information, means variable with its data types and default values, functions/methods which are declared and defined in our program. What is an application domain? An application domain is a logical container for a set of assemblies in which an executable is hosted. As you have seen, a single process may contain multiple application domains, each of which is hosting a .NET executable. The first app domain created when the CLR is initialized is called the default app domain, and this default one is destroyed when the Windows process is terminated. An app domain can be independently secured. An app domain can be unloaded, independently configured. No mutual intervention by multiple app domains. Performance. What is an assembly? An assembly is a basic building block of .NET Framework applications. It is basically compiled code that can be executed by the CLR. An assembly is a collection of types and resources that are built to work together and form a logical unit of functionality. An assembly can be a DLL or EXE depending upon the project that we choose. Assemblies are basically the following two types: private assembly, shared assembly. What are the different types of assembly? An assembly contains metadata and manifest information. The reason for the emergence of assembly concept was to overcome the common DLL hell problem in COM. The assembly contains all the code, resources, metadata, and even version information. Metadata contains the details of every type inside the assembly. In addition to metadata, assemblies also have a special file called manifest. It contains information about the current version of the assembly, culture information, public key, token if available, and other related information. There are in all three different types of assemblies: Private assembly. Shared or strong. What is a dynamic assembly? Technically, the act of loading external assemblies on demand is known as dynamic loading. Using the assembly class, we can dynamically load both private and shared assemblies from the local location to a remote location as well as explore its properties. To illustrate dynamic loading, we are creating a console-based application that loads an external testlib.dll assembly. During the execution, the application asks the user to specify the dynamic loading assembly name, and that reference is passed to the helper method that is responsible for loading the assembly. GAC. What is GAC? The GAC is a shared location of computer where we can put an assembly so that it will be accessible from many locations. I mean, it is accessible from another project or application. It's always a good practice to provide a strong name to a public assembly, I mean the assembly to be registered in the GAC, otherwise the DLL hell problem may occur. Problems that occurred. I have seen DLLs added to the GAC that you can't remove, very frustrating. I have seen registered DLLs into the cache, verified everything is there okay using ILDASM only to find the DLLs are no longer in the GAC. Strongly naming the assembly. When doing this, make sure you get the directory // correct within the assembly file, assembly.cs. If not, you will get errors whilst the code is looking for the .snk file. If you get errors which leave you scratching your head, best bet is to remove the .snk file and start over. What is a garbage collector? The garbage collector, GC, is the part of the .NET framework that allocates and releases memory for your .NET applications. The Common Language Runtime, CLR, manages allocation and deallocation of a managed object in memory. C#. Programmers never do this directly, there is no delete keyword in the C# language. It relies on the garbage collector. Example. Assume the managed heap contains a set of objects named A, B, C, D, E, F and G. During garbage collection, these objects are examined for active roots. After the graph has been constructed, unreachable objects, that we will assume are objects C and F, are marked as garbage in. Thank you for watching. Share through Navilla videos, subscribe and share. Thank you.